All right, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call the Select Board meeting for Monday, June 2nd, 2025 to order. And note that we will be entering into executive session and returning no sooner than 6 p.m. Can I get a motion, Pete? Please.
As soon as I catch my breath.
All right.
Move to enter into executive session for the following items. Item A, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for all town union to non-union personnel and/or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and Chair has determined, I think I was kidding, that open session would have a detrimental effect on the town's bargaining position. Item B, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Finance Director. And item C, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general, special law, or federal grant and aid requirements, the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Sections 22F and G, to review, approve, and/or discuss the possible release of executive session meeting minutes dated March 10, 2025, April 7, 2025, April 14, 2025, April 28, 2025, and May 19, 2025.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I get all choked up when I read about the executive session, too.
Hearing none. All in favor? Pete?
Aye.
Don? Aye. Mark?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. 5-0, Joe? We'll be back at 6. I'm going to wait for Joe. Just give me a second and we'll... Okay, Jamie, good? Good evening, and thank you for being here. I'd like to call the Select Board meeting for Monday, June 2nd, 2025, back to order, noting that we started in executive session and did take action on item C, where we approved minutes. Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we'll begin with item 4, Select Board reorganization. As I stated last week, I will not be accepting any nominations for chair, vice chair, or clerk. So I'd like to open it to the board to begin our reorganization.
I would like to make a motion if I
Please.
could. I would like, would it be okay with you if we made like a group motion? You know, or
You
do you
mean
want to
for
do
all
it
three?
all three at one time? Or do you want to do it individually?
Let's do it individually.
That's your choice. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Right now, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Don Howell for chair.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Pete,
If I could, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
please.
Mr. Howell, through the chair to you, if I could, similar to what I asked Mr. Handler several months ago. Your thought process, your approach as far as communication from the board to the town administrator's office from the town administrator's office to the board. How do you foresee that taking place and occurring?
No, thanks for the question. I've done this before. I don't view this as a pyramidal thing. I never have. So the job of the chair is to actually facilitate and gather what the board members want and try to make sure that that gets advanced. I also feel pretty strongly that all the board members should have access to the town administrator's office for their own individual questions. No one should be shut out, even the minority opinions. My major job is to coordinate the activities of the board and make sure it runs smoothly as to the wishes of the other members.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Begrudgingly, aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
And I'm a no, 4-1.
Want to finish it up?
Yeah, need another motion. You want to switch?
If I could, I'd like
Please.
to make another motion to nominate Mr. Pekarsky for the vice chair, please.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 5-0. You want to do one more?
I would. I'd like to nominate Mark Kelleher for the clerk's position, please.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Take good notes? I'm willing to learn. Hold on, let's try that one again.
I can take.
Let's try that again. You take good notes?
I do.
All right.
Can't be any worse than the
No,
current
it
clerk.
can't. The bar is not so high. Great. All in favor? Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Anita? Mark?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 5-0.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Until we leave the agenda item, Mr. Chair.
Please.
I just want to ask you publicly, because of the way you stated it last week, so you're just not interested in accepting an executive position, but how do you feel about the interview committee?
I'm looking forward to being part of the interview committee.
Okay.
All right. Let's move.
Oh, you have to move to put you on the interview committee.
That's what I'm saying. Let's move.
I move that you and Anita be the interview committee.
I'll second that. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Look forward to working with
You
you.
don't have to pack up. I'm staying here until.
wanna stay right there?
Until next week, yeah.
Mr. Outgoing Chair, Mr. Incoming Chair, I apologize for my premature applause. Now that you've been fully reorganized,
Thank you. And Don's certainly willing to help you go through anything that you might need help with while we're working through this.
Yeah, thanks. And to that, as I said, I'm looking forward to changing the rules too, so that we do the reorganization next time at the end of the meeting. It seems kind of cumbersome to have somebody develop an agenda and then all of a sudden have to bail out on it at the very beginning of the meeting. So my intention is the next time this happens is that it keeps rotating around to different members, and that it happens at the end of a meeting so that people have the opportunity to be able to deal with their own agenda. So at that, we're going to start off with staff comments and announcements. Anyone here?
Good evening, Kara Mawini, Director of Cultural Affairs. I'm here to present one of 28 seals that will be swimming their way through Harwich Port as our summer art project. This year, we are in collaboration with Children's Center on Harwich Road as we were last year, so all proceeds raised will be going towards them at the end of the summer. We had a beautiful kickoff event yesterday here at Sisson Road over at the building, and it was absolutely wonderful. The kids had a blast. We already had our first bout of bids, so it's very exciting. So people will start seeing the Seals in Park education flyer going around town, and QR codes will be accompanying each seal wherever they're located. So we will have a full list on our social media, as well as a list available at the 204, and we'll have them posted at the chamber as well, where you can view the seals and you can bid on them through the end of August, and then we'll close the online bids and then move forward to the next project. So this is our summer art project that we started 2 years ago. I can't believe it's already been that long, but it's been that long. It is the second year that we're providing proceeds to the Harwich Children's Center. So we're very excited for that. So this is one. This is actually done by Eric Ripa. Very exciting. He has 3 of these beautiful wood carvers. They're absolutely stunning. We have some beautiful seals. So I hope to see people out in the community and engaging with that. And then last, just some more announcements that on July 2nd, we start the Seaside Marketplace, so all of the shacks open. We have a full list. Lists are available at the 204, online, and at the chamber, and we'll also have several marquees available throughout the shacks as well. We have Cranfest in the Courtyard, begins on July 10th. We have a great performance lineup. So we have Christ Matthews returning, who is the 2025 International Folk Music Awards Artist of the Year. We have Rakesh coming, Twangtown Paramars, Windborne, Golden Oak, and Reverend Robert Jones Sr. coming on his way. He's going up to New Hampshire where he's actually going to be teaching an acoustical performance up there. He's going to be doing some educational seminars, so we get him right before he goes. It's very exciting. Last but not least, summer concerts kick off on Monday, June 30th. Hopefully I have my calendar dates right, because calendar's been my whole day, and I'm going blind by it. But we kick off at Brooks Park. We'll be down there, so if you don't see me here, you can find me Monday nights right at Brooks Park at the gazebo. All performances are free, and this year we're excited to have Cape Cones LLC join us, where he'll have hot dogs, burgers, pizza, ice cream truck. So anyone coming for the evening will be able to partake and buy their own refreshments. So very exciting stuff ahead. Harwich Culture is going to be surrounded by lots of fun things over the next 10 weeks or more. So, thank you.
Don't go anywhere yet.
What was it?
Don't go anywhere yet.
Okay.
Just want to thank you for your efforts yesterday. Yesterday, just so everybody fully understands, was the 32nd birthday for the Harwich Children's Center, which is part of the Harwich Ecumenical Council for Housing, and it was a terrific activity, and you helped be the glue that kept it all together, so thanks for everything.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if any other staff is coming up in the interim, I do have an update for the board. So if anyone's coming up for staff, please don't hesitate. In the meantime, the board's going to be asked to sign. This is a updated liquor license. This was for B&N Company, Dive, Dine, and Drink. You've already approved it. It's been approved by the ABCC, so you now must sign it. That's what's coming around now. No action needed.
Hello. Hi, I'm Jamie Thornton. I'm the reference librarian at Berkshire Library. I'm just here to announce that we have completed our meeting room upgrade, which means that we have a brand new assisted listening system available in our meeting room space. It's fully integrated with all of our microphones and speakers, as well as a brand new mounted projector and wireless microphones. We have a couple ways that you can connect to the system. We actually have the same system here as the Williams Sound. There's a single ear loop that you can hook over your ear. There's also a standard set of headphones that we can provide for you. There's also a loop system that you can wear that works if you have a T-coil activated on your hearing aid. And there's also an application that you can connect to. So we have a couple of different ways that you can join and log in. And this was all funded in part through gifts from the James and Helen Athens Fund, and as well as outstanding articles that were in our technology lines. And just as a note, this is a brand new system. The staff are just learning it. So if you have any questions at all, we're also learning things too. But we are also happy to sit down with you ahead of a program to walk you through the whole system. If you have any questions, you can give us a call at 508-430-7562, extension 1, or you can send us an email at brooksfreelibrary@clamsnet.org. Thank you very much.
Any other staff comments? All right, moving along. This would be the weekly briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everybody. This will be the Phase 3 sewer extension update. The look ahead covers June 2nd through June 13th. So 1 East, again, which is Route 39, the Orleans-Harwich Road area. Continued construction with buried pipes and structures within the street and right-of-way on Route 39 on public property. They're also doing construction of collection system connecting to lateral installations, again, within the street and the right-of-way on public property. They've been doing temporary paving to be installed over backfilled trenches, and because of that, police and traffic control remain in place. 2 West for that same time period, June 2nd to June 13th. This is the construction in and around Pleasant Bay Road. They continue the burying pipes and structures on Pleasant Bay Road on public property. They're also now doing the construction of the Pleasant Bay Road force main within the street and right-of-way. And again, police and traffic controls remain in place for those 2 areas for those 2 weeks. That concludes my briefing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, then, let's move along to the public comments section of the meeting. We just ask that you identify who you are and where you come from.
Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Sear, live at 118 Headwaters Drive in Harwich, and I'm here with my fellow cohorts. We are part of the Cape Cod Leadership Cape Cod's class of 2025, the CLI class, And we're very interested in bringing a topic to your attention that we feel passionately about. We're hoping to get on the agenda tonight, but hoping to get on a future agenda. We think the town needs a more robust communication strategy. We're hopeful that the Select Board will prioritize this topic as they search for a new town administrator. We're encouraged by Mark Kelleher's campaign conversations on more transparent communication and his newsletter idea. We would love to come back on a future agenda with a more formal presentation once the board has had a chance to organize, but we want to go on record now to ensure this issue gains traction in your conversations over the next few weeks. A communication strategy should be a multi-pronged approach, and we have several ideas to share. Thank you.
I'd comment, except that this particular part of the meeting isn't set up for a dialogue, so appreciate it.
Good evening, Select Board. Patrick Oden, East Harwich. Boy, I'm so happy to see a reseating of the Select Board. Maybe a week ago or so, when this sort of the switcheroo was happening, I thought of the idea of why not have the chair position of the Select Board rotate every 6 months. That way, everybody gets a chance to be glorified, appreciated, have your name in the newspaper, your picture in the newspaper, and share the burden as well as the gavel. So I'm asking you whether or not you would be willing to take up the idea of rotating the chairmanship every 6 months for the Select Board. That way, everybody has an opportunity to lead, direct, organize, and make sure all the questions are answered. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. It's same answer as before. This isn't set up for a dialogue, but thank you.
Good evening, Marjorie Pice, 1188 Orleans Road. I wanted to thank the board for changing the date that the beach stickers were available. I've got many people that have, told me they're very happy. We do need more signage, though, because people have showed up and they're not sure where to go. I know at the community center we need more signage. I only saw the one here. I'd also like to tell you that between the time that was happening, I received an email from a friend in Connecticut. And she sent me something because she does Facebook, and there's a gentleman that goes around and he goes to different beaches on Cape Cod, and he named Bank Street Beach as one of the best on the Cape. So I just thought that you should know that. And also to say hello to the new folks that are on the board. Thank you.
We don't always get compliments at the beginning of the meeting, but thank you.
Why not start out?
I'm with you there. Any other public comment? All right,
One more.
one more.
One more again.
Good evening, Select Board. Bernadette Waystack, Chair of the Harwich Cultural Council. Just wanted to take one more opportunity to invite all of you and the public to our reception a week from Thursday, June 12th, from 4 to 6 at the 204 on Sisson Road. We'll be celebrating and honoring this year's recipients of grants, and hope you can join us, and the public is cordially invited. Thank you.
All righty. Here's your shot, Mark, if you want to lean on someone. The consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes from May 27, 2025.
Second.
Unless there's any objection, we could do it as a bundle. I don't really. Do you want to keep it as separate?
Let me just double check my date. Yeah, no, we're going to have to separate it because I do have a correction on the meeting minutes.
Okay.
Do you want me to go now, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, it's
Thank
pretty-
you very much. Moving to page 15 of the packet, which is page 6 of the meeting minutes. Mr. Hanlon noted that Perks had a similar offense. Starts that line. 3/4 of the way through, it reads, he would otherwise support having someone come back to explain. I was not in support of having somebody come back to explain. I didn't think there was a need for that. So if we want to just change that to, he is not in support of having someone come back to explain, then the minutes are fine with me.
You accept that as part of the motion?
Yes, I do.
That's part of my second.
Okay. Any further comments about the minutes? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve a memorial bench at Herring Run Conservation Lands in memory of Fred Ayers.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Anybody have any discussion pertaining to this?
My only, this, it looks like in the packet that it went through Youth and Rec. Is that correct? No, I can't put my hand on it. Looked like I saw the application, is that correct?
So, yes, it was forwarded to you for action after it had gone through Rec and Youth.
That's exactly Youth, Rec and Youth. Good. Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Is there any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. All right, next. We have a public hearing regarding the harbor management plan. Let's see here, is there a public,
I don't see the hearing notice.
is
It's
there
in
a
there.
hearing notice somewhere that I'm missing?
Yeah, it's in there. It's on page, it's like the third page in, after all the circles and dots. Right?
You want me to read it, Mark? I got the hard copy.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, notice of public hearing for the harbor management plan. The Harwich Select Board will hold a public hearing on June 2, 2025, no earlier than 6 p.m. in the Don B. Griffin Room located at Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, for the purpose of reviewing proposed amendments to the harbor management plan, Appendix A, Special Purpose Mooring Assignment. All members of the public having an interest in this topic are cordially invited to attend. Remote participation is also offered. Please see the posted agenda for dial-in information. The Harwich Select Board posted the Cape Cod Chronicle, May 8, 2025, and May 15, 2025.
All right, someone want to make a motion to open up the public hearing?
I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, open the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, it's unanimous. All right, is there someone here on behalf of,
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, through you, we have our Harbor Master, John Harker. He can speak to the request as well as the materials in your packet.
hi, John.
Hey, good evening. First select board meeting for me, so nice to see you all, and congratulations as well. I'd just like to say that this was presented to me by Suzanne. Well, it actually was waiting on my desk for me when I first came on March 31st to assume the position of harbor master. Day 2, I actually went up to visit her and to kind of look at where the moorings would be placed. At that time, I kind of got some spatial awareness of how this is going to be laid out. Was much in favor. Actually spend a little bit of time at the clubhouse with her and going over the different programs and learning more about what the Pleasant Bay Boating Club actually offers to the community. As you can see in some of the letters that she's provided, they're one of the more popular sailing communities and programs on Cape Cod, doing everything from a Kits and Cats program, a women's sailing program, and then one of my favorite ones that she's offering is the adaptive program, which is allowing different types of disabilities the capabilities of being on boats within different programs. So for me, this program, this ask, going from 8 moorings, special moorings, to 4 was an easy yes. Suzanne, is there anything you'd like to add? 8 to 12, I'm sorry.
Any questions? If not, I'd like to ask if anyone from the public has any comment on the proposal. Online? Nope.
Mr. Chair, motion to close the public hearing?
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing and go into deliberations. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, board, what's your preference?
Well, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the proposed harbor management plan revisions as recommended by the harbor master and presented in our packet this evening.
Second.
Don't everybody second at once. All right, any further discussion? The motion is to approve the change. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you.
Thank you, Select Board.
We're normally that easy on you. Let's see here. Okay. I'd like to kick off the discussion for the Select Board summer meeting schedule. Just from my own perspective, it seems to me that we always wind up taking the summer off and then wind up saying sometime in March, how did we get so late? There's plenty of stuff that we need to discuss, and Mark, I know, has an inkling that he would like to have the non-resident taxpayers meeting reinstalled in August, which will take a meeting away also. I could easily see one subject meetings going on. I would just as soon not have, like, no meeting and then a 5-hour meeting and then no meeting again and then having a 3-hour meeting. There should be enough, if we don't have anything that we feel compelled need to come in and do something, that's fine. I can see us cutting some of the meetings out, but at least for the beginning, I don't know. We only have Mr. Powers here until the end of the month. I would like to be able to utilize that effectively by holding the weekly meetings. So with that, it's up to the board.
If I may say, my initial speech, should I stand? No, I'm only kidding. but-
I'll recognize you first. Mark?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
That's okay.
Now.
Now's your time.
I would agree with you. We have a lot on our docket, so I would agree to have a fancy word, a syncopated, regular schedule. So we've got a finance director coming on, we've got a search committee coming on. I do think looking forward, if we reach a point where we can go to a bi-weekly meeting, we consider it. But I do think we have a lot on our plate, and I'm in favor of meeting weekly until we can get a clearer sense of where we're going and see some clear space in front of us. So.
Anita?
No, I agree.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
If I could spell syncopated, I'd be Googling it right now.
It's a jazz phrase.
Yeah, no, understanding that there will be meetings that some of us can't attend because it is the middle of the summer, and that's okay. So I'm fine with having weekly meetings on the docket.
And while we're on that subject, just because I didn't have a chance to start with this, I think everybody pretty much knows how I feel about information being put out into the public rather than emailed to us. If we're going to be doing tentative discussions, I'm not sure how that'll work. I'll have to talk to administration, but I'd like to be able to have a Dropbox section that's for upcoming agendas, but not necessarily the next agenda, so that people have the opportunity to not have to wait for 320 pages from a Thursday to a Monday. I think it would be helpful to everybody to be able to digest stuff, because everything isn't as urgent as everything else. So if we're going to be developing some of these things, it may not be for 2 or 3 weeks, but I would love to be able to see a bucket where you could pull out information and study it for more than 2 days. It's just a comment. So we're going to leave the schedule where it is then, Joe, at least for the next few weeks.
I encourage you to meet away.
Mr. Chair?
Does that mean you're going to come in and meet with us after?
Put my remote in.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Chair?
Thanks, Joe.
I move that we vote to approve the proposed fiscal year 2026 holiday schedule.
Anyone want a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Anyone want to have a discussion over it?
Mr. Chair, through you to the board, just to advise that the town follows the Secretary of the Commonwealth's holiday calendar, as well as any other dates that are required by collective bargaining. And that is what you see in front of you for the proposed calendar.
And if I could, and I believe I asked this last year, but I'll ask one more time. The day after Thanksgiving is collective bargaining.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
And we will note that there is no comment on the calendar for either the day after Christmas Day or the day after New Year's Day, and that's a wholly separate discussion. We're not voting on that
Correct.
tonight.
Correct.
Everybody okay with the schedule?
Fine.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Okay, next item is to review and approve conservation restriction of the Cape Cod Rail Trail overlook in the Red River Valley Preserve. Michael Locke and Tom are here.
Good evening. I'm Michael Locke, Executive Director of the Harwich Conservation Trust, and joining
Tom Evans, President of the Volunteer Board of Trustees of the Harwich Conservation Trust.
Thank you for including on your agenda the review and approval of 2 conservation restrictions. They represent another opportunity for Harwich Conservation Trust and Town of Harwich to partner on preserving priority watershed lands that can protect our coastal embayments, our public drinking water supply, wildlife habitat, scenic views, and the potential for future walking trail opportunities. I'm going to speak to these individually, even though they're in one agenda item. With your permission, Mr. Chair.
Please do it that way.
The first conservation restriction referenced was approved by town meeting vote for the Town Conservation Commission to hold this conservation restriction subject to Conservation Commission approval and Select Board approval through Article 29 of this recent May 2025 town meeting. This conservation restriction focuses on approximately 50 acres of land that is between Great Western Road and Main Street, sometimes called Kelly Street. This property is owned by Ray Thatcher Jr., and Harwich Conservation Trust appreciates Ray Thatcher and his family for working with us to protect this property long-term. We'll be subject to a 2-year farming lease back. As we know, this is a cranberry bog property. Thatchers have long-standing experience in cranberry farming, and I think I want to speak to the fact that we're at an interesting crossroads for commercial cranberry farming, and it's Harwich has deep cranberry roots, and it's part of the fabric of the community. At the same time, what's been happening is larger off-Cape farms, primarily in the Midwest and Canada, have been creating an oversupply of cranberries over the past few decades, and that's pushed down prices. That combined with labor shortages, increase in costs, and warmer winters has made it more difficult for some local growers, and they've been looking for alternatives, for graceful ways to exit the industry. They can develop the upland, or they could turn to a local land trust like Harwich Conservation Trust or the town to acquire these properties. And so we've been working with local farmers in that capacity over the past couple decades, and it's been a great partnership. This represents another one of those opportunities. As you can see from the conservation restriction, it's a set of terms, really boilerplate terms mostly. Think of this conservation restriction as part of a belt and suspenders approach to permanent preservation of the property. So I'm glad to answer any questions about this conservation restriction, and I hope for your positive review and approval so that we can move forward and receive the State Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Secretary approval, at which point then it will be recorded in the Registry of Deeds. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. Locke? Mark?
Yeah, I have one question, Michael. Does this preclude in the future, in the unlikely proposition that cranberry farming comes back, somebody leasing their property and returning to cranberry growing?
It does, because part of the funding mechanism to acquire this property, the purchase and sale agreement between Harwich Conservation Trust and Ray Thatcher Jr. is for $2.52 million based on appraisal. And one of the public funding sources is a grant through the state called the Cranberry Acquisition for Eco-Restoration Program. And one of the purposes of that grant program is to acquire bog properties for future eco-restoration. Another funding source, as you know from Article 29 this past May's town meeting, is the Community Preservation Act Open Space Reserve, $500,000, and this conservation restriction makes receipt of those funds toward the acquisition also possible.
Thank you.
I think the question is physically, though, is it capable of occurring?
Not under this conservation restriction because of the funding source.
Further questions?
No, great explanation, appreciate it.
Jeff?
Now, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the conservation restrictions at the Cape Cod Rail Trail Overlook and the Red River Valley Preserve as presented in the packet.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. You're still here for the
Yes.
restoration.
Thank you for
You
the
look
approval of
familiar.
each of those conservation restrictions.
Go ahead, we're walking, you can shoot.
Yes, yes. Thank you for including on this next agenda item, 10D, a presentation about the Herring River Watershed 50% Design Eco Restoration Project. The goals of this presentation include describing the 3 locations of this first phase of design, the funding source, as well as to seek your support of including the easterly portion of the town-owned Main Street land bank property in the project, and also to share an opportunity for the town to study the potential natural reduction of nitrogen that could result from a future eco-restoration of the 3 locations in the Herring River watershed. The funding source for this first phase, 50% eco-restoration design, is the state's Division of Ecological Restoration. Harwich Conservation Trust applied for and was approved for a $150,000 grant to conduct this 50% design phase. The tasks included in the design scope of work include gathering baseline data such as topography, hydrology, the depth of sand on the original wetland surface, then use that data to start the process of designing ways to restore more natural water flow and wetland conditions, and then document the results of the baseline data gathering and the synthesizing of that information into eco-restoration options, into a report and some design concepts to consider. The location of the project area, comprised of 3 sites, is in the center of the Herring River watershed, as you can see from the graphic. The blue arrows at the top of the screen leading into Hinckley's Pond, Long Pond, and Seymour Pond show the upstream migration of river herring that swim from Nantucket Sound through the Herring River into their spawning ponds each spring. The project area is located roughly northeast of West Reservoir and north of Great Western Road, as well as the town's land bank property, which is north of and adjacent to Main Street. If we look at a topographic map from USGS circa 1900, we can see 2 stream flows, one on the east from Flax Pond through the town land bank property under Main Street or Kelly Street, through the Thatcher property, and then under the Great Western Road. On the west, you can see stream flow from Sam Pond through the Thatcher property and under Great Western Road, both of those streams that I just described flowing into the greater Herring River estuary there south of Great Western Road. To orient us on this map, you can see the Cape Cod Rail Trail paralleling Great Western Road toward the lower quarter of the map, and then north, just north of the Cape Cod Rail Trail and Great Western Road is the roughly 50-acre Thatcher property that's located at street address 379 Main Street. North and east of that site across Main Street or Kelly Street is the town's Main Street property, town land bank property, located at street address 374 Main Street. And then to the west, that is hydrologically connected to Sam Pond and located south of Main Street, is Harwich Conservation Trust 11-acre property acquired circa 2014. That's located at street address 2 Deacons Folly Road. Those are each of the 3 sites circled. In particular, I'd like to draw your attention to the hatched area that is encircling the bogs that buffer the water flow south from Flax Pond through the town's Main Street land bank property located at 374 Main Street, and then exiting that property under Main Street into the Thatcher property. That easterly portion, which you can see at a closer scale here, is the portion of the project scope that, again, is on town land. And we propose, with your consent, to include that area in this 50% design project. We have consulted Superintendent Bob Sanborn of Cape Tech Regional Technical High School, which, as you know, has a lease of the property from you, from the town. Mr. Sanborn is in favor of that easterly portion being included in this 50% design phase. The cost of approximately $20,000 to include this area in this project is covered within the greater $150,000 State Division of Ecological Restoration grant to Harwich Conservation Trust. Separate from this Division of Ecological Restoration grant, there is an opportunity here for the town to study the potential for nitrogen attenuation on both the town's 374 Main Street property and HCT's 379 Main Street property. Similar to the town HCT Colebrook eco-restoration collaboration. As part of your agenda materials, you received both this presentation, the slides, and a copy of the town's 2016 Colebrook nitrogen attenuation feasibility study. Just to give you an example of an approach that the town could consider for studying the natural nitrogen attenuation potential of an eco-restoration project in this area. Again, citing the Colebrook example, that eco-restoration natural attenuation feasibility study for the Colebrook system led to a 2017 town meeting vote authorizing $2 million toward the eco-restoration of the Colebrook system in order to save taxpayers an anticipated $6 million in reduced wastewater infrastructure in the Colebrook watershed, so that water flowing through that watershed on its way to Saquatucket Harbor could receive the eco-restoration natural nitrogen reduction benefits. Here's a project schedule for the 50% design eco-restoration scope. We anticipate completing this scope by June 30 of next year. Thanks for your time. I'm glad to answer any questions. Dan Pelletier, who was also involved in the Colebrook project on behalf of the town, is also here this evening.
Questions from the board? Mark?
No, please.
Just a couple of questions. When you say $6 million savings in sewering, does that mean properties located adjacent to the areas don't need to have sewers brought to them? Is that, in real-world applications, is that what that means?
So the 2016 nitrogen attenuation study, Colebrook study, completed for the town, that was authored by CDM Smith and School for Marine and Science Technology out of UMass Dartmouth. And in that report and further in the town's comprehensive wastewater management plan, they estimated up to $6 million in taxpayer savings through the reduced need for wastewater infrastructure within the watershed to Saquatucket Harbor. So in answer to your question, I would say the study focused on the development potential within the watershed and actually the developed areas within the watershed that wouldn't otherwise need sewer infrastructure because of the natural nitrogen reduction aspects of the eco-restoration project. The town is engaged in a 3-year nitrogen monitoring plan to study the amount of nitrogen entering the Colebrook system at Bank Street and the amount of nitrogen leaving the Colebrook system post-eco-restoration as the water leaves Hoyt Road and makes its way south to Saquatucket Harbor. So as we speak, TMDL Solutions has that contract with the town for that nitrogen monitoring plan and is gathering data to substantiate what was projected by the town's 2016 nitrogen attenuation Colebrook feasibility study and further in the town's comprehensive wastewater management plan. Again, Dan Pelletier is here and can clarify or add any other information.
Can I also ask a question about Red River? That's the area where Chase Plumbing, the building formerly was Chase Plumbing on 28? And you mentioned in that you were going to put a education center, offices, and event space. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, so what Mr. Kelleher is referencing is on the prior agenda item, the conservation restriction at street address number 1039 Route 28, the former Chase property. That's right, Courtney Chase, longstanding Harwich family, plumber, and his son, Phil, also a plumber. Darn good one, I might add. And so the three kids, Phil being one of them, sold the property. And Harwich Conservation Trust, thanks to the support of so many, was able to acquire that land. That land being the largest forested undeveloped tract anywhere in Harwich, south of 28. It's quite incredible. It's sort of a testament to the amount of development that's been happening. And so on that property sits the Chase home, about 2,000 square feet or so. And yes, Harwich Conservation Trust has been studying, renovating, or otherwise rebuilding an office on that location. Our current office is about a half mile down the road, and we've been at our space limit for some time, and needing a larger area. And we also think one that's set back a little bit from Route 28, so the windows don't shake when the big trucks roll on by. But it's, that design process is underway to study whether it's a new build or if it's a renovation of the existing structure. That's where we are at this moment in time.
Jeff?
Thank you, Don. Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear, if we could, from Dan Pelletier at this point.
At risk of putting myself out of a job, I couldn't have said it better myself, really.
All right, Dan, thanks. You can go back to your seat now.
No, Mike had reached out, to introduce the project. I had talked to him a couple weeks ago. I think it's a great opportunity for the town. It's great that the data from Saquatucket is going to be coming through, so it'll really prove it all out, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could. Tell me why we need to spend the $20,000 if we already have really good data from the Coldbrook project, and this is a very similar eco-restoration project. I'm just going to ask, what do we need to study for the potentials for?
Is there a $20,000 ask?
And as a point of clarification, the $20,000 is part of the state's Division of Ecological Restoration grant that's been approved for Harwich Conservation Trust to create the first phase of eco-restoration design across the 3 sites.
I see.
Yeah, and then another opportunity for the town to consider,
right,
to your point, and that would require funding from some source, if you saw fit, if you thought that was necessary, to determine the nitrogen attenuation potential of an eco-restoration design. And so the most recent example of which it is the 2016 town study contracted under CDM Smith and SMAST. So it's up to the town, really, if it wants to follow the approach that you did for Coldbrook with a feasibility study or not.
If I can piggyback on there, to ultimately prove to the regulatory agencies that you are going to be reducing the sewering infrastructure, you're going to need to establish baseline data, which for Harwich would be specific for our purpose for the project. So I wouldn't anticipate HCT would pay for the monitoring, pre-construction monitoring, and things of that nature as well.
Thank you. And if one more, if I could.
Sure.
Is there or is it too premature to ask about an estimated cost savings from the potential of reducing our sewering? We're not there yet, I don't think.
Yeah, not there yet. At least I haven't seen sufficient data to make, an estimate. I don't know if you can speak to.
That would be one of the conclusions of a nitrogen attenuation feasibility study to help guide the town in that manner.
Great, thank you, that's all.
Realizing tonight we're just talking about the eco-restoration design evaluation. And I'm sure Dr. Sanborn has blessed this, but does it have any impact on what they're looking to do on that site?
My understanding is that of the bog locations on the 374 Main Street property, they're leasing from the town, there's still a bog area off to the west that would be outside this eco-restoration 50% design scope, and Mr. Sambor would like to keep it that way, at least at this point in time. But he is in favor of the easterly portion buffering that water flow from Flax Pond, whether it's surface water flow or groundwater flow, it depends on the time of the year. And so that's where we are to date.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Nita? Thanks, Dan. Before the public, I know Tom was belted around on Facebook quite a bit on the Colebrook project. It always, when you start doing these things, it always looks horrible because you have to tear it apart to put it back together again. And I go back to the original discussion about Colebrook as an eco-restoration project, and the concept always was, we don't want a sewer every place, everywhere, all the time. We're looking for alternative approaches as they make themselves available, and hence Colebrook. But I know that the water flows are all different in different areas, so that's why you need to do your study. Does anyone from the public want to comment on it? Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, welcome new members. Members that have been on the board are in receipt of a letter that
I know who you are. We all know
Matt
who you are. but you have
Sutphin,
to say
I'm
it each
sorry.
time you get up
Matt
there.
Sutphin, Harwich Center. Members who've been on the board are in receipt of a letter that I sent back in January with my concern about this property. The town voted for the tech school to build a satellite campus at town meeting. However, I don't think any of us had any idea the extent and the scope of that they intended to possibly act on. In what's on the record that went before CPC, which in my opinion, thankfully CPC voted down, which was a request for $980,000, I think. They had a schedule of work that included, forget the above ground construction, $1,900,000 in site work and site-related work. Now, to me, this is the elephant in the room here. Clearly, I'm excited that the trust wants to mitigate nitrogen loading. And they'll be doing a significant amount of mitigation without any construction right next door to the anticipated work. But doing it with the school, building what I understand it intends to build, it seems like they're collaborating. And I don't know if that's a net plus in terms when you talk about nitrogen attenuation. If you're going to let a $3 or $4 million project be built right next to this attenuation, what are you really accomplishing? I hope that there are enough people in town when, as I understand it, and I don't pretend to understand all the facts, but I do understand that the tech school has a 3-year lease to put their plan together and move forward. Now, I'm just hoping their 3-year lease will run out and they haven't found the money, because it's crazy to build a satellite campus with the demographics going forward that suggest that schools are going to start emptying out. Monomoy's emptying out, Sandwich, I talked to the teachers, emptying out. There may not be the need for this satellite school. It's perfectly logical that any extra classrooms needed should be built on the existing site. It's cheaper and it's less destructive, and it doesn't require the Harwich Conservation Trust to do its bit to attenuate nitrogen because of added loading. It's common sense. And I think that's the elephant in the room that I'm motivated, I had to get up and talk about, because I don't think anybody wants to talk about it. So I appreciate if these 3 years run out, that your board will find a way to give the whole 33 acres to the Harwich Conservation Trust to manage. Right now, the school leases 33 acres, a $630,000 purchase by this town 20 years ago, leases to the tech school for $1,000 a year. Now, just doesn't seem to add up. That we would, as taxpayers, produce a situation that cost us $630,000, and we're looking for $1,000 back. And bear in mind that there are 12 or so other schools towns that are part of the tech school, and they're all just kind of laughing at the good deal they got. I don't understand how it happened, frankly. I mean, I'll take $630,000 from anybody for $1,000 a month. So I hope there'll be further deliberation about discouraging the tech school, because it just doesn't add up on so many fronts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As a quick postscript, Matt, you said that's not something to bat around, but I've said this to other people, and it bears repeating to you. Sometimes people who are even good friends can disagree honestly on some things. So don't take offense what I'm going to say, but I don't know that the world was a better place when we eliminated civics from academic schools. And in this instance, in the tech school, they were looking to try to get more involved with agricultural endeavors. And they have eliminated largely that program on their main campus. They felt the need for this, and there'll still be an opportunity to discuss that, but I'm pretty sure that this attenuation program was not designed to attenuate an output from that particular building, but I'll throw that back to the trust.
May I, Mr. Chair? The projects are unrelated. The reason for contacting Bob Sanborn was simply because the tech holds the lease on the property. From our point of view, we're really trying to get a better read on the nitrogen impairment and the nitrogen attenuation potential in the Herring River Basin. Flax Pond is part of that, Sand Pond is part of that. They drain, even today, they drain flows through those bogs. So for us to be able to have a better scientific understanding of the nitrogen impairment and attenuation potential of those properties only makes sense. And we're doing so in a way that brings more information to bear and that does not pose a cost issue to the town at this point. 2 or 3 years down the road, we'll learn more about the property. And maybe at that point, we'll have more information that suggests that the project that the tech is proposing doesn't make sense. But that's a bridge that, as far as we're concerned, people can cross when we get there. We're trying to be a greater part of the solution at this point in the process, and the projects aren't connected.
And I think, more to the previous speaker's point, you're right, they're going to need money. So A, there's going to be a circuit breaker there. They have to go back to the CPC. B, they're going to have to get approval for anything that they're talking about building. I would suggest that the biggest problem that we've had in the past is people don't feel like they're a part of the process. I guarantee you they will be part of the process. If there's a substantial blowback, you'll be heard. But in the meantime, these folks don't exactly know what the tech school's doing other than the overview of it. And I'm sure the tech school doesn't have a real handle on what you're going to be doing. So we're here tonight for just this. Anybody else? Patrick.
Yeah, hi again, Patrick Ott in East Harwich. I'm just curious, what about Pine Oaks 4? When that's built and developed, where is that with relationship to your efforts on the Herring River?
In answering that, it's going to wind up being off topic because you'll hear that it's not there.
So you're going to be doing nitrogen studies today, but in the future, you're going to have the tech school. In the future, you're going to have Pine Oaks.
Patrick, just roughly speaking, the flow of underground water goes north to south. It doesn't go west and then hook back and go south again, so.
Just curious.
The data that they're going to be collecting will reveal that. Dan seems to be halfway up to getting off of his chair.
My other quick question is, what's the 50% mean? I don't understand. 50% in your title of what? Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Otten, for your questions. So just to, again, point of clarification, relative to a study of the enhanced attenuation of nitrogen that could result from eco-restoration of these 3 sites. That is not part of the grant that's funding this 50% design study. That is a study that the town has to consider whether it wants to fund or not, like it did for the 2016 Colebrook attenuation study linked to the Colebrook Eco-Restoration Project. So to Mr. Otten's question about 50% design, that essentially means that it brings us to a certain point halfway through the design process as a result of the hydrology data, the topography data, using ground penetrating radar to assess the depth of sand that's been laid over the wetland surface over the past century, gathering all that information into a report, basis of design report, some call it, and then start the initial conceptual renderings of eco-restoration design options for each of the 3 sites that are part of the scope. Once we have that level of design, we can then apply for other grants that can help us move us through the second 50% to 100% final design and the permitting process. And then also apply for funds that can support the eco-restoration construction phase. So 3 main phases: design, permitting, and construction. This particular project, we've broken the design into 2 phases, a first 50% and then a second 50% to final. Thank you. Dan, did you want to add anything?
If I may, Dan, Waterworks Consulting, just on the Pine Oaks comment with regard to nitrogen. So when the CWMP was developed, the amount of nitrogen that needed to be removed included build-out that would be what could be developed on the individual parcels at the time that the CWMP was adopted. Now, if Pine Oaks 4 is outside of what would have been allowed at zoning, if it's a 40B there or anywhere else in town, the town would need to consider the additional nitrogen loading and then need to accommodate and mitigate said additional nitrogen load. Because the watershed permit requires you to mitigate the nitrogen plus build-out, which can be a moving target with 40Bs and other projects outside of zoning.
More to the point, on a 40B project, you can't blow by Title V requirements. So the applicant for that, on their own, would have to show, what the discharge would be, and they'd have to come up with a remediation plan of their own to address that. This has nothing to do with these folks. Now, do you have an ask, or it was just a presentation?
We seek your support in including the easterly portion of the town-owned Main Street property as described in the presentation within the design scope. We have the support of your lessee, Cape Tech, and we feel that it's important to seek your support in including that portion, again, in this 50% design process.
So the first third of that comment, which sounds like a motion, you're seeking our approval for?
Including the easterly portion of the town-owned 374 Main Street property.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion by the board? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? It's unanimous. Now you can thank us.
Thank you very much. We'll keep you informed as the process unfolds.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And if anybody hasn't been down to Bank Street to see that restoration, I highly recommend it. It's something else. It's really beautiful.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the 2025 junk dealer license renewal for Windsong Antiques Incorporated, 346 Route 28.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application. All in favor?
Discussion?
Okay, discussion?
Nope.
I figured you'd stop me if you wanted to discuss. How about now? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve a special permit application for an event for the American Lung Association to be held on September 26, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. for a bicycle ride event through the town of Harwich.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll note that the actual request is for a Sunday on the bike trail. Any further discussion on it?
So with that said, no closing of streets.
That's exactly where I was headed.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes, sir.
We have Mr. Pelletier here. We're paying him by the hour. I'm wondering if we could get him, if we could switch C with A, and I'm sure he wants to get home.
As do we all. So come on up, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, why didn't Mr. Handler say that an hour ago?
Thought of it now, and I forgot. But thanks for bringing that up, Pete.
Thank you, and congratulations. All right, shall I?
Sure.
Also, congratulations.
Or condolences, as the case may be.
Yeah, right. All right, so I guess just quick summary, since the contract has been signed, just really been trying to get caught up with GHD. I did have the opportunity to meet with them, with the team a few weeks ago, and then I had another discussion with Mark late last week. With regard to Great Sand Lakes, couple things. We're still waiting for a couple, the plans to be sent over from them, but they did say you guys have town-owned land for the pump station site. However, there may be some private roads within the project area, which we'll need to get utility easements for. With that's also going to need to have appraisals done. So they're sending over their plans, and they're going to get a list together for anything that needs to be done relative to that. Easements and property rights for private roads do need to be taken prior to construction starts, which I'm not quite sure when they have that slated yet, but I would anticipate within the next year or so. Other than that, at some point, I would recommend the board engage the town of Chatham, the IMA group, to discuss them taking flows from Great Sand Lakes. In preparation for that, I would recommend looking at the current wastewater flows for the amount of parcels that we have hooked up today and extrapolate that out, because I know when we initially purchased flow from the town of Chatham, we were looking at 300,000 gallons. I know there's between 300 and 400 houses connected now, and I want to say we're in the neighborhood of 30 to 50,000 gallons per day. So good to evaluate that before going into that meeting. There's other things that I would recommend talking about maybe in an executive session prior to engaging that discussion. But that's all right now with regard to Great Sand Lakes. In talking with...
Can I stop you just for a second?
Absolutely.
Because I've had a couple of constituents ask this. I'm not even quite sure, but I know the layout of what they were planning on addressing in the approved article is north of the ponds rather than south of the ponds, correct?
North of the ponds.
Okay, and the idea is to capture that before it gets into the pond itself, not after that.
Correct.
So
Groundwater.
it's up towards the Queen Anne Road part.
Yeah, up gradient of the groundwater flow is the area that we're sewering.
Because the folks at Great Sand Lakes also come down on the 39, so there were some people who were asking which way and why.
Yeah.
The why is because the flow goes towards the ponds and we're trying to stop it before it even gets there.
If there isn't one that exists, I could reach out and see if we could get a GIS map just showing the proposed sewer area, just to answer that.
It might be nice just to put on our site so that people don't have to even ask the question. They can just go on and say, this is what we're doing. But by all means, go on.
All right. So I also spoke with GHD about the effluent recharge. I know they also had discussions with Sean Fernandez over at the golf department to potentially seek using some of the golf course property for effluent recharge. One of the concerns there is that most of the golf course is in the Zone 2 of the well fields over there, so I know some additional funding was approved at town meeting, so they were going to be exploring some additional parcels, and we're planning to reconvene in the coming weeks to discuss some other options. They also had sent over the proposed revisions to the sewer use regulations for the grinder pump policy, so I was going to give those a review. I just received those yesterday. And lastly, Mark had asked if I would be able to, and I'm asking for your permission to, stand in for Anastasia, who has been on the Pleasant Bay Alliance in my absence when I had left last year, and she's going to be going out for maternity leave for a couple months, so had asked if I would be able to step in on that. They usually meet monthly or twice a month. And that's all I got.
Just so the public understands, it's getting to the point where we're not going to have any representation at all on the Pleasant Bay Alliance, and yet we were one of the founders of it, so.
Correct.
That's. You want to expound on that? Mark, you could.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow you on what?
The Pleasant Bay Alliance is slowly getting depopulated as to our representatives. That's why he's bringing this up.
I have no questions on that.
Go on.
I guess that's all I have for the update tonight.
Well, I guess a couple quick things, but as far as Dan representing us at the Alliance, I assume we want to give that a blessing, whether we want a motion or not.
I think it would be in order to send as our representative.
Motion allowed, Dan Phillips.
Joe.
So you have two tiers of representatives. You have technical resources, which has been staff, that still exists. You've had community representatives. Then you have GHD. So if you're asking Mr. Pelletier to sit in for GHD, I would argue it doesn't require a vote. That's a straight transaction between vendors. And it sort of goes to the question of depopulation. So staff is already working on additional appointments to that advisory board.
I guess the question is, has GHD actually been availing itself of that and actually sitting in on their meetings?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So have you talked to them, Dan, relative to coordinating your appearing there, or rather than them?
With the
or with
Alliance
them?
or with GHD?
With GHD.
Mark had asked me at the end of last week, and because I had said I was coming here tonight, and he said, he was asking how it works, like how it would work as far as you directing me requesting it, kind of still figuring out this contract relationship, and I had said, I will run it by the board on Monday.
Yeah, and I assume, right, that the question comes down to compensation, right? We're the ones who are gonna pay you to represent us at that meeting.
Right, as you were
GHD
with
is not going
GHD.
to offset that cost,
Right.
so.
Keep going.
So again, whether or not you're inclined to.
It's a vendor relationship, so to speak. It's not an appointment by the board.
But Pete's trying to say that, on the other hand, it'll come out of our pocket, even if
So
it is a vendor
I guess the
relationship.
question is,
Well, you're paying for it either
it'd be
way.
a blessing of the payment, not so much as representation of
Yeah.
of the Alliance. So, in which case, if we want a motion as a board, then I'm willing to approve expending those funds
That's your motion.
for Mr. Pelletier. Yes.
Have a second?
Second right here.
Further discussion? Jeff?
It's Mark Drainville.
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was him.
Marks.
No, I'm sorry,
When you
apologies.
said Mark, you looked at him, and I'm like, why are you asking him? Okay, now
Mark
it
Drainville
just hit
from
me.
GHD.
Mark
Who I
Drainville from
spoke to
GHD.
late last
Okay.
week,
I
asking if
get
I
it.
could stand
Okay.
in for
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
no. Okay, moved in second. I have no other discussion, no other bad discussion.
Thanks for that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, so we're going to go back up to town
No,
minutes.
Hold on.
Yep.
Go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to, Mr. Chair, and I'm asking the board, would the board be averse to or in support of if we can get a non-taxpayer summer meeting to have Mr. Pelletier in attendance there? And I would have to preface that by saying we would need to, to have professional there. We want to publicize it and get a good show, but would the board be averse if we have a summer meeting to have Mr. Pelletier there?
I'll note he's our consultant relative to the project, so he'd be valuable to answer questions.
I would just ask, I think it's June 29th is my son's play, if we can't do it that day.
We didn't give you a date now, did we?
But we'll keep that in mind.
We've typically done it somewhere between the mid-July and mid-August timeframe, and I'm not saying that we wouldn't ask you first
Try to
about
make
when
it
you'd be
work.
available.
I would support that.
Anita?
All right, great. And may I just ask, Mr. Chair, through you, a couple of questions to
The
Mr.
other Mark.
Pelletier? Was that?
Other Mark.
Okay, yeah, not Mark Drainville. You mentioned we're only at 30 to 50,000 gallons of flow to Chatham now. I think you mentioned we've bought up to 250 or 300,000.
Yeah.
Why do we have to, if we have so much underutilized capacity, why do we have to go back to Chatham to negotiate with them for additional flow since
Reason being, the IMA was drafted in support of cleaning up Pleasant Bay, through which Harwich and Chatham mutually share. And there's language in there that because Great Sand Lakes ultimately doesn't go to Pleasant Bay, that should we want to send flow from outside of Pleasant Bay to Chatham, it would require an additional conversation. So it was really just Chatham saying, we only want to treat wastewater that would otherwise go to Pleasant Bay. That was.
And do you have a cost chart? I remember during some of the school discussions, one of the select board members from Chatham mentioned about raising the sewering cost. And, I just had a little question about, do we have a range of what reasonable costs are, so perhaps we're not gouged cost-wise for whatever reason?
Are you saying with respect to sewer users, like the customer sewer rates?
No,
Or
what Chatham charges Harwich for flow. Can they change that arbitrarily to something that may not be reasonable?
No. The way that the agreement is structured, there are fixed expenses and there are flow variable expenses. The fixed expenses are charged at 23.08%, which reflects the capacity, the 300,000 gallons that we've purchased of the whole of the treatment plant. And then there are flow variable expenses for things like wastewater treatment chemicals. So we pay proportionately based on our flow as compared to Chatham's flow at the treatment plant, that respective percentage of the flow variable expenses. So when we first brought our flow online, I had went over and met with Bob Duncanson at the time and went through their line item budget to identify which expenses would be fixed and flow variable, and we've been reconciling that annually since.
So you feel comfortable about future charges? It's built into the formula that there can't be any big change?
The only way in which they could do it is if they arbitrarily fluffed one of the fixed variable or fixed budget line items, which, I think we would have a right to question. They do provide the wastewater department with a proposed budget in anticipation of the ensuing fiscal year, so.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Pete?
If I could, I'm not looking to give me street addresses by any stretch, but in your previous role there, in your time, going through the beginnings of this project, have you identified in your own head potential sites for recharge?
There is a site that I think would be viable in East Harwich. I had brought it up to GHD at risk of blowing it out of the water. There was a water department parcel over there that is not a well field. There's a vernal pool on it, so I know there's limitations on the water side and with the effluent recharge side. But in the grand scheme of things, I think it should definitely be open for discussion between the select board and the water wastewater department about the potential future use of that parcel. There is a couple other that we had looked at on north of the highway behind, I think there was a golf course there planned at one time years ago, north of the highway behind Headwaters. So there's another potential sites. When we had initially started the first effluent recharge scope, we had did a 2-mile radius around the DPW site. I believe it was 2-mile radius. So some of these sites fall outside of that window, and I think that's part of what they're looking to cover in the additional scope that was funded.
Okay. And when, Mr. Chair, if I could, when we talk about the IMA, my instincts tell me, Mark, if they wanted to address any of the charges, when we engage them for this particular 3A phase, they could broach the subject then, if they were so inclined, because we essentially open the IMA at that point in some fashion. You know, of course, we hope it's more of an addendum to the existing IMA, but that would be their opportunity if they were so inclined.
I would say the parcel in East Harwich I was referencing is the site of one of the pump stations that's going in for phase 3. So it is part of the same parcel.
How much area are we talking about that it's required?
It really depends on
How much
a lot of things. The type, if you do an open sand bed filter, you're going to get a higher capacity than if you do a, a subsurface, like a Title V leach field type. There's wick wells, there's deep water injection. Really depends on site specific. There's environmental factors, depending on how close you are to a surface water body. You can only discharge so much into the ground as to not affect adjacent surface water bodies. So it really is site specific, and there is very few areas in town that do not have water near them. So it's quite difficult.
And if I could, it's that the recharge, that water, how quickly can we test that water? I guess how frequently can we sample that water to see what's coming back?
What are we sampling for? So we would have the ability to sample, as much or frequently as is required. I believe when the effluent is getting discharged from the treatment plant, I believe they're doing bacteria samples daily. I don't know if it's weeklies, quarterlies, but they are routinely checking the effluent leaving the treatment plant. So it's pretty well regulated.
And is that done through a system, or is that through human interaction?
The sampling of the effluent? Yeah, they collect samples and sample them and analyze them.
Gotcha.
They're not testing for things like PFAS or, other contaminants. So I had always talked about this when we talked about putting recharge sites in, around, or near zone 2s for wells. You can turn the effluent leaving the treatment plant back into drinking water if you wanted to. It's really, at the discretion of the town. What I can say right now is that the treatment that is in Chatham and the treatment plant they're proposing to build in Dennis do not remove PFAS, right? So anywhere that you're going to be discharging that effluent, there's going to be resident and public concern for what that is going to, loading does to the groundwater. So if there's things above and beyond what they're regulated to test for, that would be something we would have to elect and do on our own.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, Pete just brought up something I was going to bring up. You and I have had this conversation for quite a long time. You don't know what you have, because you don't know what you have unless you know what you have. And if you're not testing, it doesn't mean there's nothing. It just means you're not testing.
Right.
So with that as the background, Chatham did test at certain points, and they did find some PFAS in their wells. Our effluent and their effluent get combined to get treated and then that's sent out. And I'm pretty sure that it's something we do want to do before we start planting it in the ground, is to test for emerging threats, see what it is we're bringing back. Because we were testing here for PFAS. We hadn't found any.
Not yet. Parts per trillion, that's why it's testing in parts per trillion for PFAS in the
But you
drinking
understand what I'm
water.
saying?
Yeah,
It gets
exactly.
sent in there and it's homogenized and
Right.
it just gets sent out in a pro rata portion to us to recharge what our gallonage was.
Right.
So it becomes real important to be able to test it. Any further questions for him? Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jeff, for saving us at least $10 now.
Every penny counts,
It
Don.
does, it does.
Amen.
You gotta pay for that Boston Globe subscription somehow.
Although they're eliminating pennies, so nothing will count in that area. All right. In the spirit of keeping people here forever, Karen, do you want to come up and talk about the 204? That's also out of order, but you've been patiently waiting.
All right, good evening. As I hear, there were some questions last week, so I'm happy to answer anything you may not have answers to. And when it comes to the second read of the policy,
Okay, board, have at it.
Mr. Chair, may I go first?
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
I asked some of the questions, Carol, last week, and I just wanted, I asked about utility charges. I understand you're not separately metered. Will you have the ability to check your utility bills so we get a sense of what is, the gas and electric usage will be?
that's correct. So it is not privately metered or separately metered. From my understanding from a conversation with Megan Eldridge and with Sean Libby is that, yes, we'd be able to see an increase in the bills paid. I don't directly manage that process. All the bills are processed through town administration's office, but we'd be able to certainly notice is once the kitchen starts creeping up and we know that we have, say, 10 rentals that week, and all of a sudden we're starting to see, January bill come in and it's, 15% higher than normal, we can start raising a red flag and saying, we've got a problem, let's look at this. So it'd be certainly something we'd keep an eye on.
Okay. I meant to drive by today. Do you have, most of these restaurants have big exhaust fans on the roof. How do you handle, say like somebody cooks hamburgers with the grease? How does that handle?
Yeah, so there is a hood system in place. It is working order, condition, everything is all set. So so if anyone was to cook in the physical kitchen on the stovetop, it would be vented. They are on the rooftop. You can see them if you're coming in off of South Street.
Okay. And who locks up at night? So like the lease goes till 9 o'clock. Who locks up everything?
It's myself or our part-time program aid.
Okay, so you get somebody. And last question, just a thought, like a restaurateur who's in town. You may have already had this, to have it take a quick tour and just see if we've missed anything, for the operation, just a thought.
Yes, it's a great thought, and it's a great question. It's something that we've actually done. So all of our culinary instructors that have sent in proposals that they wanted to use the kitchen space for educational purposes, we actually asked that they'd come through and meet with us on site to ensure that it would actually incorporate what they're actually looking for. I hate to have someone walk in and look at a space versus what we say and what they actually see, and it be two different things. So we do ask anyone when they're on site and in person to come in and see us. And a lot of these people are former chefs, whether they've worked in an educational setting or they're just on the market. So absolutely, we've had them come in. Some have made suggestions about equipment that they might need in the future, but as we stated, it's as is to begin, and then with the opportunity that if all goes well, we can continue to grow the program.
And I think it's a great idea. Anything to increase revenues in that building, I think is a real positive plus, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Further comments?
Yes, if I could, my questions were related around trash and waste removal.
Yes, so we have a dumpster, and there was a newer contract through procurement that was taking place prior in this year. And I did speak with Megan Eldridge about this to clarify this point, which is that Prior, the contract at 204 Sisson was in fact that it was a call as is needed basis. So our custodian or myself would make a call to the disposal company and say, hey, we're full, come clear it out. When the new procurement took place, we ensured to make that, because we've had such an influx, we had to call a lot because of all the events taking place at 204 Sisson, that I asked that it go to every other week. And that has been sufficient. So with our use and the up use that we've had within the past year, it's been a sufficient upload. As far as the waste removal piece for the actual use policy, I did notice in the agenda that line item 20, which I had proposed to administration when I made a suggestion regarding waste, did not make your packet, and that was specific to your comments as far as them removing their said waste, whether it's taking it with them or putting it in the physical dumpster. The same protocol is already in place for tenant usage, so we don't like rags or anything left in the building. Every single rental or participant in the facility is required to remove their waste, and like I had mentioned earlier to previous speaker's point, is that there's a staff present. So if something is missed, we're able to secure that and make sure it's actually tucked away where it needs to be.
Just to follow up, so your recommendation was to add a number 20 regarding their waste?
That is correct. So, and I can read it to you if you'd like. So the proposed was that renters will be responsible for their own waste removal after each program and or use of the kitchen space. This will include all items related to food waste, scraps, materials, and other items used that would be required for disposal. All items should be bagged and properly disposed of in order to minimize any potential hazards and or other related risks.
Thank you very much for that language.
Welcome.
Any other comments? I think what we're gonna, because we're not gonna.
If I could, through you.
Sure.
Based on the comments from staff, I first want to emphasize that if there were omissions, it was not the fault of the staff. So I would recommend that you hold off on adopting the policy so that the director and the staff can work on making sure we've captured everything for your appropriate.
That's what it was.
Second reading. Thank you.
It needs to be a final reading with all the language in it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure. So,
Yep.
if that gets put in, then we'll put it back on the agenda. for
Great.
Rehash.
And if I could, my comments weren't just to that commentary, there may be other things that were meant to be in there, so we'll take another crack at it.
Great.
Again, there's no omission by the staff, though.
But if anybody has anything else they'd like to bring up, just make sure, because the next one will be the final draft.
Just one last question. Pest control. Are you planning on that, to get ahead of any potential problem?
So we'll continue to monitor for any increased activity, and if there needs to be further treatment taken care of, we will notify facilities of that. But as I've been previously notified, that there already is a pest management plan in place that already takes place on town property. So like we do anywhere, if we do have something that's creeping up because people are leaving the area a mess, first, that's a problem that we will have to rectify with the individual renting the facility. But secondly, if that'll be something that we'll contact facilities and make sure that they're on top of it for treatment purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Appreciate you being here, appreciate you waiting to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, now we can go to A.
Knew we'd get there.
I knew we would too. We took the back roads. Discussion on a town administrator search. Have we? Why don't you start out? You look like-
No, I know Megan had sent a draft RFP, and I will disclose that I haven't had a chance to go through it in its entirety yet, so I really don't have any thoughts or opinions. I appreciate her getting it out to us as quickly as she did. And, I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to review it, but I'd like, another day or so to get back to her.
Yeah, I'd rather not see us vote on something blind. So if that means we bring it back next week, at least everybody will have a chance to look at it.
Yeah, the others may have read it.
That sounds great. I think there was also narrative in her email about reaching out to the search firms and what they've responded to her request for them to come. So, yeah, I'm happy to, I guess if we're going to wait another week to do it, then we wait another week.
Yeah, and I think that Jeff's point, I think she indicated in her correspondence that one of them was willing to come before us next week to have a discussion as far as their overall process, kind of like the highlights.
Yep.
So I'd be more than happy to see that occur.
Can we make sure that invitation is extended?
Sure,
To the vendor
so
who
my
wants it.
recommendation would be, I think what the assistant town administrator was asking is we have a proper 30B ready to go, request for proposals that would include vendors coming before you as part of that process. My recommendation would be you take the time that you've talked about this evening during this week to respond back to Megan. And then I would recommend after that it's appropriate to have vendors coming in. You do want to tie it to the overall request for proposal. So I believe the vendor that was available was working on the assumption that the RFP would have been released this week. If you think you will be able to comment back to the Assistant Town Administrator this week and we can release it, then we can get back on that June 9th schedule. But you do want to keep it under the guise of Chapter 30B.
And for those folks out in TV land, so that everybody, the public actually understands what's going on, inferentially, we're not doing the MMA route. We are doing a contract 30B route, which is why we're talking about this being stylized and being part of the RFP.
I believe you mean the Collins Center route?
Yes.
Thank you. UMB, not MMA. Go Beacons.
Okay, we're getting parochially clear. All right, so I encourage everybody to read that RFP draft. Okay.
Mr. Chair, when you get into contracts now, I'm going to recuse myself and I'm going to leave the room for the next two items.
Okay. Due to a potential conflict? Okay. All right, first we're going to be talking about an OPM Owner's Project Management Services contract for Brooks Academy Museum in the amount not to exceed $100,000.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move that we vote to approve a contract with RGB Architects for owner's project management services for Brooks Academy Museum in the amount not to exceed $100,000.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
No, not at this time.
I will just note that happily, Mr. Handler and I were involved in this at the get-go, so happily we are seeing movement towards Brooks Academy being occupied this summer and rebuilt for next year. So with that, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? So it's 4-0 with one person recusing themselves. Okay. B, discussion and possible vote to contract extension to time bond for the completion of the local comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chair, I move we vote to approve a contract extension with tie and bond for the completion of the local comprehensive plan.
Second for discussion.
Okay, discussion.
Let me get to it if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Thank you. My only question is, and I read through it. If Christine, can you speak to this a little bit, maybe? Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes, please.
Either I or the Director of
Sure.
Planning and Community Development can speak to it.
Okay.
It's not that I object to our Director of Planning, but either one of us can get to the request. As my colleague approaches the dais, I will tell you that this is a time extension that is required. There would be an expectation of a separate amendment for additional services. But first and foremost, we need to extend the time.
Thank you.
She may be able to correct anything I've misstated.
Sorry, thank you. Mr. Chair, and congratulations to all of you as well. In terms of the contract extension, because we are still finalizing the draft for the local comprehensive plan, we are asking for the time extension to have the plan presented at Fall Town Meeting, and if in the event that there is no Fall Town Meeting, that the contract be extended to June 30th, 2026, so that we can have it finalized for the May annual town meeting in 2026. And after that, we also have to go have the local comprehensive plan approved by the Cape Cod Commission. So there is a little bit of a process, so that's why we're asking for the extension.
And if I could, through you, the makers of the motion, the intent is for the board to authorize the chair to sign.
Questions?
So to clarify, tonight, This is strictly to do with time, not compensation, but what it sounded like I heard is there'll then be a future agenda item for additional compensation.
Not at this time. We're hoping that we will be operating within the budget that we have. But if there is extra compensation, we will let you know, obviously for funding purposes. But at this time, we're not anticipating additional compensation.
And if I could, I believe this fiscal year, what is it still, 2025, right? I believe Joe went to seek additional $40,000 for this project?
Correct.
And do we know how close we are as far as hitting the budget at this point?
We, I don't have the exact numbers, but I can follow up with you tomorrow.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, this is Sharon Rooney, your consultant, and I apologize I wasn't able to attend tonight in person. I was just checked our budget today, and we are at about 90% of our budget. So we are trying to retain some funds left in the budget to accommodate additional minor revisions that might be made as a result of outreach that's conducted over the summer by the planning committee or the town staff. So that's the status of where we stand right now.
And so, I guess, do you anticipate exceeding the remaining budget at this point in time?
We do not. We were requested to ask for this extension request for time only, a one-time no-cost extension to meet the desires of the planning committee to conduct additional outreach over the summer on the draft plan, and we have submitted a draft plan that's in layout form, so it's well along in the process in terms of its final form. And we've also completed our obligations under the open space and recreation plan and the housing production plan. So we are substantially complete, but the planning committee felt that some additional time to conduct additional outreach over the course of the summer and early fall was necessary. So essentially, Ty and Bond would be put on hold for a bit of time, if you will, while the town staff and committee conduct some additional outreach over the summer.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
And just for the board's edification, I didn't support the additional $40,000 6 months ago or whatever, and unlikely to support any additional funds in the future, so thank you.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Sharon, for being online, and through you, Mr. Chair. As the process has moved along, I think this board should be updated with any new draft that has been produced. So I can only imagine from the last time we had spoken and the draft was presented to us, I'm sure there's been revisions. And I could be wrong, but I would assume with that team working, the local comprehensive team and you working on this, that there's probably been some updates and revisions. Would that be a fair statement before I continue? Sharon?
I don't know if that's to Christine or myself, but
Either one.
I'll start and Christine can add in. There have been substantial changes really because the committee over the last month or two has been working on the action plan and prioritizing proposed actions. So what has been sent recently to the planning committee for their meeting tomorrow night, I will be in attendance tomorrow night, is a draft plan that is in layout form. It's going to be in its relatively final form for town meeting, but it's still a draft, obviously. So it's progressed quite a ways from when you last saw it, and it is available and it can be shared with all of you at this point. Christine has the link. It's very easy for you. You don't need to have Adobe software to log in and take a look at it.
That's great, and I'm not gonna speak for the rest of the board, but I would love to see that link so that we're not compressed for time. And then if this board wants to weigh in at all, we have sufficient amount of time to weigh in and see red line changes and all the things that we've asked for in the past that has stalled the process a little bit. And from a money standpoint, probably be a good idea for us to see it now. So if there's any changes that needed to be made, that the board feels needs to be made, we're not doing it late in the game. So at least for me, I'd like to see it. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Yes, I was going to ask Mark first.
And absolutely, and I would
Excuse
think
me.
that that's part of
Excuse
the
me.
committee.
Excuse me.
Their process is to conduct outreach.
Sharon, you haven't been recognized yet. Please, we're talking
sorry.
here.
Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, with the intent of clarifying so we can get to dinner, or late snack, what the board's being asked under this agenda item is in support of the local comprehensive planning committee, in the creation of our local comprehensive plan. As you know, we had an original, just about a year and a half agreement with Ty and Bond that went through December 31st of 2024. We amended that before December of 2024 to increase the funds available, but also have a new target date of completion of July 1st, 2025. And that's why you are contemplating, or the prior board was contemplating, whether or not this should go before town meeting. And I think the prior board correctly took the action of not getting it through town meeting at the time. So if you look at what's being requested in front of you in the Ty and Bond document dated May 6th, first you're being asked, at the request of administration, staff, and the committee, to extend the timeframe. And then, as you can see in paragraph 3, if, as the committee goes through their process, if, quote, in the event that substantial revisions are required as a result of community outreach or other factors beyond the control of Ty and Bond, going beyond the budget of $239,000, Ty and Bond would require an amendment for additional services. I would argue that you're being asked for a time extension tonight that does not commit you to the additional services or any other action thereon. And so I would ask you to adopt the proposal in front of you by authorizing the chair to sign it to simply get more time in the books. Otherwise, we are done July 1st, 2025, without an extension. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, this, just a clarification, this is hopefully for a fall town meeting, and there'll be enough time to get the document out to the people in the public to review.
So I think the timing of it is always going to be at the direction of the select board, because you establish the warrants for town meeting, and this contemplates if you want to have a special town meeting, presumably in the fall or some other time. However, this, as I understand it, this time extension gives you until the end of fiscal year 27, June 30th of 26. So the decisions on when it comes before the town remain with the select board.
I have something to say. The planning committee came in front of us late March, early April, to try to get this on town meeting, and we were given to understand that this was absolutely close to final draft to vote on. Obviously, that isn't the case. The planning committee is a construct of the select board. We haven't heard anything from them since then. So before I would, I mean, I'm only one person, but before I would support anything, I would like the committee and a presentation, about where we are and where we might expect to be and what's holding it up and what isn't. Because, again, I feel like if we had been convinced to have a vote on it at a town meeting, we weren't going to be voting on what we have right now. I brought up some things. I know that I've spoken to other people who had brought up some other things that I'm pretty sure you're discussing just based on talking to members. But none of the people, again, it's a construct of the select board. I'd love to have the committee and you come in here and explain why and where and how long. So I'm not going to vote for an extension either unless I hear exactly where we are. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to take staff out of this direct line of questioning
I'd
Because
like the
it's-
committee, to be honest with you, to come in.
Sure. May I finish, sir? Thank you. The Rec Line staff is not responsible for this matter. The Rec Line staff is responsible for aiding everybody in this matter. I have heard the board, what I believe to be loud and clear, whether you take a vote or not, and I will work with appropriate staff and the committee to make sure that you have a joint meeting with that committee later this month, if that's your preference. The reason why this is before you is because administration has reviewed it, and we think that the request for more time in and of itself is reasonable. If you're not inclined to act this evening, no harm, no foul, in my opinion. We have time later in the month of June. However, if you wish to meet jointly with the local planning committee for the discussion of this, no objection whatsoever.
I'm not sure it's a joint meeting so much as it is a report from their chair about where they are.
However the board wants it, staff will make sure it happens.
So did somebody make a motion to approve this?
I believe I made a motion and it was second. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I moved and I think.
To grant the time extension.
Yeah, for the time, and I think Pete seconded, and I'll just chime in. I see no reason for us to postpone this vote. And we can bring the chair of the local comprehensive plan, local comprehensive committee, local planning committee in to give us a briefing on where they sit. But I see this as the town administrator made it very clear. This is an extension of time, which does not bind us to any increase in funds.
I'm still where it was at. I'm very unhappy that we were asked to pass something in April that would have committed us to passage of this at town meeting when it wasn't ready. So,
Okay.
all right. So the motion is to grant the time extension for the contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye.
With the chair to sign?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's with the chair to
There we go.
sign.
Thank you.
Is this one?
Anita, oh, there you are.
Anita can come home again. Come on back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
June 2.
You said you were making dinner?
Okay, moving right along.
Reheating dinner. But I wanted to know.
Discussion and possible vote for a contract with MJT Enterprises in the amount of, this is incorrect, I believe, the amount.
It is not, I know a member had asked the question, and I can speak to it.
Please do.
Thank you. So you're being asked to approve a contract with MJT Enterprises Incorporated, doing business as Cape Cod Oil. And this was a procurement, as has been done in the past, that is organized through the Barnstable County Procurement Group, of which Harwich is a member. Sorry, I was distracted for a moment there. And so the low bidder, based on diesel fuel heating oil, is MJT Enterprises Incorporated, doing business as Cape Cod Oil. So what I believe you have in your packet overall is, first, the bid results for both heating oil and gasoline for vehicles. This evening, however, you're being asked to approve the heating oil only. The figure of $192,000 is because the town has 8,000 gallons of oil tanks to fill per filling. This allows us to get up to 10 fillings of heating oil throughout the season. We do not expect to use the full 10, but you never know with the weather. So the dollar amount that you see there, one filling for 8,000 is 19,200. However, not to exceed the number, because the town's not looking to fill our oil tanks just one time during the season. So it's a not to exceed amount. I think the relevant fact here is that the town would be going with the low bidder and with a local company, which is always good.
But the outer limit is not to exceed 192,000?
Correct.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a contract with MJT Enterprises in the amount of $192,000 for the purchase and delivery of heating oil,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed the amount of $192,000 for the purchase and delivery of heating oil.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Town Administrator's Report.
Thank you. First, for my town administrator's report, did the contract go around for the OPM?
I don't know, I just signed anything that came in front of
All
me.
right.
RGB is right here, we're just getting the last.
Well, that was that promissory note that I gave you?
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, town administrator's report. First, a contract to announce. And this is a contract that was coordinated through our police department, through the deputy chief Hutton. And pleased to announce that the town is contracted with Sigma Technical Wellness to provide members of the Harwich Police Department with cardiovascular screening, allowing them to proactively manage their cardiac health. As you may know, this is the second consecutive year that the Harwich Police Department and administration of Police Department have supported this. The contract dollar amount is for $10,000. Again, it was awarded to Telemedicine Group DE LLC. And again, it is for a dollar amount not to exceed $10,000. I believe it comes in at just under at $9,772.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question, please? Sure. Mr. Powers, this is a great idea. Because of the heart law, does the fire department have anything commensurate with this?
So both police and fire do have contract language and budgetary amounts to support wellness of the staff. I know those were priorities of both of our chiefs, and the town has endorsed that as well.
Do they have something similar to this where they actually do the testing?
I don't know if it's similar to this, but I do know that they both have wellness programs.
Okay.
So we can certainly reach out to the fire chief to get you more information if you'd like.
Great. I'd appreciate that. I just think this is a great program. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay.
I was gonna make a pitch for Monomoy Sports, but I have.
Go ahead.
I have a vested interest. Well, they're not done yet, but keep going, Sharks, and everyone else. Enjoy the spring. Thank you. That concludes my report.
All right. Select Board member reports. Pete?
You folks actually brought up the item I had listed for tonight, which is the non-resident taxpayer meeting, so I appreciate that it's in the works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of weeks ago, I had reached out to administration regarding reaching out to Chatham to schedule that second meeting with Pete and I, and it's not Mr. Shell anymore, it's another person. So I just want to.
Is Stu gonna be in that? Or?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just making sure that through you, I can work through administration to get that next meeting scheduled.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all for me.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, in response, I did have a conversation with my colleague last week at the Mass Managers meeting. As you know, they go all over the Commonwealth and they end up in Brewster. So
You mentioned that
it's a
several
nice little
times.
daily trip, but it is great to see my colleagues. Ms. Goldsmith and I were able to connect on several matters, not the least of which is that one, I believe, member Nick Castro is their chair. So I do have information for you later on in that regard and in that effort.
Excellent. Thank you.
We'll talk first about that.
Sure.
Okay, Mark?
Nothing to report.
Anita? I got nothing. So,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
it's moved and seconded. Anyone in favor of it?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
You can stay.